Okay, can you introduce yourself for those who might not know who you are?
Fargo 1, TC5, GND.
Okay, let's jump into it. What neighborhood or borough are you from?
From the borough of Brooklyn, Bensonhurst, Brooklyn.
Okay, what was your experience like growing up as a kid in Brooklyn?
Mostly neighborhoods. Everybody's tucked in their own neighborhoods, basically. Quiet. As a young kid, you raise hell a little bit. That's pretty much it.
Right. What was your favorite cartoon growing up in the 80s?
In the 80s, nah, I didn't have no cartoons in the 80s. I grew up in the 60s.
Oh, wow.
Courageous Cat, Minute Mouse, I used to like that.
Okay, so were you into art growing up as a kid?
Yeah, my mother drew. I had a couple of cousins that drew. So my mother basically taught me how to draw.
Okay, when did you first start noticing writing on the walls or the subways?
Around 1971, 72, going to school every day. I used to take the train to school every day, and I just started seeing names up on the train. I pretty much knew how and where they were doing them, but it was just a matter of when. But I knew I wanted to do it.
Okay, who were some of the names you seen up at this time?
Superstrut, Taz, they were brothers. AG 170 were riders from uptown Manhattan. Comet, Blade, Silvertips, Flint 707, who I consider to be my inspiration. Flint 707, yeah, he was the man.
Okay, are those the guys that inspired you to start writing, or was it someone else?
Flint 707 was the man who started me. He wasn't the first. I never wrote with him, but he was the name that I saw the most. That really caught my eye with the stuff he was doing for that time.
Okay, where did you first do your piece at when you first started writing?
First was just on the street, handball court, stuff like that there. But the first time I did a train was in July of 1973 in Coney Island Yard.
Okay, what inspired you to get involved in writing?
Seeing guys doing it, just seeing it up on the trains every day. And I didn't know anybody personally who was doing it, so that appealed to me.
Okay, so the name is important. How did you come up with the name Fargo?
Armored truck. Got it off an armored truck. Wells Fargo truck.
That's interesting. Okay, so did you write anything else early on?
Over the years, when I first started, I had Fargo was my main name. I had Skylab 2, Base 353 Express, and occasionally I wrote Jam 1. That was like when I was hitting the trains. When I stopped and I came back, I came up with like 7 or 8 different names that I've done over the years.
Okay, who was the first writer you met and how did you meet?
The neighborhood I grew up in, there was a project not too far away. I used to hang out there. And that's when I really started. There was a guy in the projects who was writing. Not only was he writing, but he was hitting trains. So I was on a train one day somewhere in Manhattan, and I saw his name. I said, yo, he's getting up. I gotta catch up with him. When I found out who he was, I knew the guy. So I was like, okay, Shep, I'm gonna go painting with you. We're gonna do this. He's like, word? I'm like, okay, yeah. And we went that afternoon. One summer afternoon, we went in the yard. I went and got some paint, came back. Let's go.
Okay, do you have a mentor coming up? I read that you dug the style of a writer by the name of Big D from
Yeah,
UND.
yeah, Big D. When I really started getting into it, started venturing out to other neighborhoods, I met this writer. He lived in Brooklyn also. And it was a crew of them, the GND crew. I met those guys. And Big D, I used to go paint with him a lot. I liked his style, and he was fearless.
Okay, was there anyone who influenced your style?
Big D, he showed me a few things. Flint, too. Just from watching. Nobody really sat down with me, and we didn't have black book sessions and stuff like that there. But there were a few writers whose style I liked. There
Okay,
were, like I said, Flint. There was a guy, Mr. Al. I liked his style. He was good. Another guy was fearless. All one. Not really a stylist, but he got up. And my man Chuck 129. That boy was nice.
Okay. Um, who were some of their partners back in the days?
Chuck 129. Really didn't have partners per se, but there was guys that I pieced with more than others. Big D was another one. Wasn't really a partner, but we did a lot of trains together. Priest 310. I went with him a few times. Mostly I went by myself.
Okay. How did you meet your graffiti partner? Chuck
Okay.
29.
Okay.
129.
Back in the day, there used to be a meeting place we used to go. We called it Writers Corner. It was a train station at Atlantic Avenue. That was the Brooklyn meeting spot. Every day after school, we'd go there, hang out, bring the black books, meet other writers, look at girls. It was just a hangout. And that's where I met Chuck earlier, though. But then me and Chuck started hanging out. So that's how that happened.
Okay. I'm assuming this was around your high school area.
Yeah. Cause
So what school did you go to, and was there any other writers that went to the same school as you?
oh yeah. I went to FDR High School, Franklin Delano Roosevelt in Brooklyn, and Dash One. That's somebody you should talk to also, and Slave. Dash One went to school with me, and a guy named Danger 59. Matter of fact, me and Danger were in the same art class, and the teacher loved us because we did something nobody else was doing. She used to take the train every day to work, and she would see our stuff. But yeah, Dash One and Danger 59, we went to the same high school.
Okay. I'm sure you was rolling with a crew at this time. So what crews were you in?
G&D, Graffiti Never Dies.
Okay. Um, how did you get put down with that crew?
They just asked me, hey, you want to be down with our crew? And that was it.
Okay. So what lines did you write on, and did you king any lines? And
No,
if
I
so,
didn't care.
which years?
I didn't king any lines, but I did a lot of damage. A lot of that. I used to what they call the flats, but it was mostly the letter lines: M's, double R's, D's, B's.
And those are Brooklyn trains, correct?
Yeah, Brooklyn. I hit the IRTs occasionally. I think maybe 6 or 7, maybe about 8 times I hit the IRTs. But one thing I can say about hitting every piece I did on the IRTs was the top to bottom, because that's where I went. I went to layup where you did top to bottoms. So every one that I did over there was a top to bottom.
Okay. What was your peak years on the subway?
74 to 76.
Did you have
73 to 76, yeah.
Did you ever have any beef with any writers back in the day?
No, not really, no. There were some guys I didn't particularly care for, but nobody bothered me. I didn't bother nobody.
Was there any artists that you wanted to test your skills against, but you never got the chance to battle?
We weren't battling back then. But I think they used to call it racing back then. Who could take over a line the quickest? You know, that was around about the advent of the throw-ups. People started doing throw-ups, and that's how they took over lines. But no, there were guys I would want to paint. I didn't want to paint with. Like later on, years later, I did wind up painting with them eventually. After the train movement.
Okay. What's your favorite raid story, and can you tell us what went down?
Raids?
Raid.
Okay, yeah, I got a good one. One of the few times I went to the IRT, the layup we used to go to was called Kingston Avenue. It was a notoriously hot layup. Guys were getting busted left and right, getting chased. But every now and then it would quiet down long enough for you to get in and get out. And guys would come from the Bronx to come down to paint the Kingston. That's how nice it was. One day, it must have been maybe 15 of us down there painting. Everybody's piecing. And I took off my jacket. I had a jacket, a windbreaker, and I took it off because I didn't want to get paint on it. I put it on the side of the train at the end on the gate there. And then we got raided. I mean, it was bad. Cops had stopped. They were coming from the tracks, and they had parked their car on top of the escape hatch, so we couldn't get out. Fortunately, I knew my way around the system, so I knew there were other ways, but I forgot my jacket. Okay, so later on that afternoon, we're sitting at Atlantic Avenue, waiting to see what we had done. You know, to see the trains go by. And the train comes in, and there's my jacket flapping in the breeze at the end of the train. I had to run and catch the train, ride it to the next stop before I could catch up with my jacket in between the cars. I got the jacket. That was that. But that was the only time I got raided.
Okay, I read in an interview that there was a cop named Artie that used to have
Yeah.
y'all write y'all tags
Yeah,
in
yeah.
the black book.
Artie, he was part of the what they called back then the Vandal Squad.
Okay,
Their job was to just chase writers. And Artie was kind of cool about it. You know, he had a black book like other writers. And he'd come down there and he would sit there and talk to you, just trying to fish, get information, ask you to set people up and whatnot. But nobody was having that. And he was a cool guy, but he would bust you. But he wouldn't bust you in the layup. Because they knew when you did a piece, they watched. They knew when you did a new piece, top to bottom, whatever it was, they knew about it. They saw it. And if he never met you before, what you write? And you're so and so. Don't let me catch you, because that was the whole thing. They have to catch you in the act. If they catch you in the layup, that's just trespassing.
okay. Did he ever bust you for graffiti, or
No.
did you try to? What was your interactions with him?
Right there at Atlantic Avenue.
That's
Right there at Atlantic Avenue. But later on, I had interaction with him later on in my working life, because I started working for the Transit Authority. He was a transit cop. And when I saw him years later, he didn't remember me. He knew me, but he didn't know where he knew me from. And I said, I'm Fargo. He says, oh, what are you doing? How's it going? What are you doing in here? And I told myself, I'm a motorman. He said, wow, okay. And that was that.
nice. Okay, you would end up getting put down with TC5. How did that come about, and who put you down with the crew?
Well, it was a collective. It was a collective. They all voted. It was about the vice president. The vice president and the president voted on it. And that happened about a little over 10 years ago. You know, so it wasn't just about the graffiti thing. It was about knowing these guys as a collective, knowing each one individually and as a group. And we all had the same interests. We were always down to travel, whatever. We were down for whatever. Nothing violent, nothing crazy, but we just grown men who have common interests. And we just happen to paint graffiti. That's it.
Okay. Did you ever travel to the bench at 149th Street, and who were some of the people you remember?
Yeah, I went
seeing?
up there a few times. It was, I met B3, Stick 150, Jive 3. I met a few guys. I met Comet uptown, Silvertips uptown. When did I meet Blade? I met Blade at 5 Points. That's where I met years later. Like a lot of these guys, I knew who they were. And I knew what they looked like, what they looked like. Some guys I only met once and didn't see them again for 30 years.
Okay. Is there any artists from your era you think deserve acknowledgement that's not normally mentioned in the graffiti history?
Sure. I can run out a list. TJ 159, Super Strut. God, who else? It was Puma 109. I think it was Puma 108 or Puma 109 from the Sixes. I wish Is the Wiz was still around. Tracy 168, really, I like Tracy, a cool guy. Mitch 77. Let me see, Dondi definitely. If you only got one stack of flowers left, Dondi gets them. I mean, a lot of people as a whole knew how nice he was, but they just don't know. They don't know. There's stuff you haven't seen that he's done just on scraps of paper, stuff like that there. And you usually didn't see it unless you knew him well. You didn't see what his outlines or anything like that. You wouldn't see till it's a train.
Okay. We covered a lot of things in this interview. Is there something that we didn't cover that you want to include?
I think the '70s writers should get more recognition. There were a lot of guys. I mean, it wasn't a lot of it wasn't pretty. And when you did see a pretty piece back then, it usually ran for quite some time. Like you'll see the new graffiti books now, and you'll see a picture on the cover or something like that. Then I remember that piece. I remember seeing that piece. But there's a lot of guys that just don't get their flowers. A lot of the original TC5 guys. because nobody really knew them. They were known uptown, but personally, not a lot of guys knew them.
All right. Well, we come to the end of the interview where I give you a couple of names and I ask you, in your opinion, who you think would win a battle.
Oh, sure.
So, first off, we got Mitch 77 versus Slave.
Slave, no man. I love Kenny. I love Kenny.
So is that
But
trans-
Kenny was an innovator. I gotta give it to Slave. Gotta give it to him.
Okay, next we got Lee versus Crash.
Lee.
Okay.
I love Crash's work. John is he's a great guy, great artist, very innovative. But I gotta give it to Lee.
All right. Up next we got Futura versus Scene from UA.
I gotta give it to Lenny. Futura.
Okay.
Gotta give it to Futura.
Up next we got Sharp versus John 1.
John won.
John 1.
John won.
All right.
And all these cats your name, and they're pretty much after my era, but I remember seeing their work on a consistent basis.
Okay. Up next we got James Top versus Min.
Min. Wayne gets it hands down. Min is my man.
Okay. This is a tagging battle. We got Stay High versus Taki.
Stay high.
Stay High.
Stylish.
And last
And
but
he did it consistently.
okay. Last but not least, we have Flight versus Shy 147.
That's a tough one. I knew Shy. He was a good guy. Gotta give it to Flight.
Flight.
Flight has his style has more flair. There was more flair to it.
All right. Well, that's the end of the interview. I want to thank you for joining us today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. Hope to see you in Texas soon.
Yeah. Fargo, TC5.
Peace.
Peace.
Thanks.